Hey, what's up guys? I'm going to go over the outline that Chris sent out earlier regarding the table views. And we're going to be doing this step by step. And it's going to be a quick, maybe 10 or 15 minute, little demo on, how to get your table views hooked up in a very, very basic kind of way. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy the outline that Chris sent out and copy that. And I'm just going to put it in, a text editor here so we can actually mark off the things that we have done. So, we're going to start from the first step and go work our way down the list. And by the end of it, you should have all this working if you follow along. Cool. So first thing we do, make a new single view application project. Easy enough. So let's go ahead and close this. We're going into Xcode and we are going to create a new project. There we go. I'm going to make this full screen. Single view application. I'm going to name this table view demo. Cool. I'm going to create the repository on my local machine, and I'm also going to push this over to GitHub so you guys have the code later on. So I'm going to create it. I'm going to save it on my desktop. Cool. So let's make this full screen again. All right, so the first step is complete. So I'm going to mark this green. Maybe another green. This green is not good. This one. Okay. So in Interface Builder, add a table view to the view controller. Let's go ahead and do that. So inside of our Interface Builder, spinning wheel of death. Hopefully my computer does not crash this time. Come on. Okay. It's not looking good so far. It looks like it might crash. But let's just move forward. That's all we can do. So we're going to create a table view. We're going to go ahead and drag it inside of our main view controller here. And I'm just going to align it so that it fits the whole area where I can see stuff. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and give it some constraints. And 0, 0, 0 all the way, adding the constraints. Okay, so there we go. We added a table view to our view controller. Done. So number 3, wire up the table view's data source and delegate outlets. Okay, so the way you would do that is you would click on the table view, make sure that you're selecting the right table view. And the way I like to do it, Chris did it, he dragged it from the table view over to this view controller here. By the way, this yellow kind of like coin looking thing is representing the view controller. And Chris dragged it from the table view to the view controller, but I like to use it, I like to do it this way. So when you select the table view, you go over to this right, arrow thingy. This will tell you where all of the connections are. So over here on the top, you see the data source and delegate. And if you hover over the little circle here, you can hold down Control and drag that directly to this view controller yellow thingy. And there we go. I let it go and it assigned it for me. So I do that for the delegate as well. And there you go. You see, they're both wired up. Now, this step is done. There we go. So step 4, declare that the view controller implements UI table view data source and UI table view delegate protocols. Okay, so what that means is now that we have these guys hooked up, we need to tell this view controller that, hey, you are responsible for doing this, because right now it doesn't know. The table view knows, but this view controller does not yet know. So the way we do that, we click into this view controller.switch file, and we just simply give it UI table view, and this thing should auto-populate. There we go. Delegate UI table view data source, like that. Now I should see an error, and it's going to tell me that I have not yet conformed to the protocols. Type view controller does not conform to protocol UI table view data source. And it's right, because I have not yet created the methods, the protocol methods, to satisfy this connection here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, from here, I'm going to write the table view protocol methods. That's where it's going to go. But the previous step said to hook up the table view delegate and the table view data source to this view controller, which I have just done. So I can go ahead and check this off my list. Declare that the view controller implements. Yes, done. Now, step 5. We are going to implement the UI table view data source protocol, the 2 required methods. And those 2 required methods are the methods that I have to write down here in order to satisfy this condition so that it does indeed conform to this protocol of the data source and delegate. So if memory serves me right, it's going to be table view, and it's going to be a number of rows in section, which is this first one. And it's going to ask me to return an integer number. So for now, I'm just going to return 0, just to make sure that it does not scream any errors at me. So the next one is going to be table view cell for row at, right there. And this guy is waiting for me to return a UI table view cell. So in order for it to not show me any errors, I'm going to have to return something with this type. So in this case, I just want to reinitialize, like, newly initialize a new instance of that. So all I would have to type is table view cell dot init, and that's a function. And all that does, it just returns me a fresh new instance of that thing. So it will satisfy all the conditions, and now you can see there are no errors. Everything looking good so far. All right, so this number 5, this step is done. We're going to move over to step 6. Create a prototype cell with a label. Okay, so we're going to go over here back to our main storyboard. We're going to highlight this table view, go to this attribute inspector here, and we're going to give it, you see where it says prototype cells, we're going to give it 1 prototype cell. So there we go. Now that we see the prototype cell, we can click on this table view drop down. We can click on this table view cell. There we go. It has its own content view, which is this area in here. If I wanted to make it a little larger, I can just simply drag this guy down, and you see the content view is slightly larger. And I can even give it a background, make it purple, just so we can see it. So it says here that with a label. Now, we saw in the morning that it actually comes with a built-in label, so we're not going to create a custom label just yet. So we're going to go ahead and just finish this step. So cool, that's going to be our table view cell. So now, number 7, run your app. You should see several rows in the table. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to run it on the iPhone 5. Hopefully that'll not be as taxing to my computer as running it on the iPhone 7 Plus, which is what I did last time, and it just completely froze my computer. See, you got a little error here. So prototype table cells must have reuse identifiers. And I did not assign one to this, so gave me this little warning here, but it looks like it's still going to run. Oh my god, please don't crash. No. Okay, I can still pan back and forth, so that's a good sign. Let's see what's next. So run your app, you just see several rows in the table. So we're running it now. So that step is done. Let's kind of organize this now. So number 8, build a fixture. Alright, so while this thing is running, and hopefully this doesn't totally kill my computer, but while it's running, let's go ahead and create our fixture. We're going to go back to our view controller, and on this very top part here, we're going to create a constant. We're going to call it animals, and that is going to be equal to an array of some strings. So we got Doge, we got the cat, we got the red panda, we got the, let's say, the blue panda, and we got the, I don't know, orange panda. Or let's make it the orange chicken. All right, so this guy is my fixture. And as Chris mentioned in the morning, a fixture is really just some dummy data that is kind of, masquerading as some data that you would get from an API. And right now, we're just going to make it some strings, so we can simply print it out in our table view. So this guy's still working. I'm going to go ahead and mark this guy's done because we just did that. Now, number 9, it says, wire up the 2 protocol methods, return the number of items in the fixture, and then return a generic cell. Okay, so over here, remember when we said we were returning 0 cells, we're actually gonna have number of rows in this section be the number of elements inside of our fixture array, inside of our animals array. So in order to get that integer number, we're going to simply just call self.animals. It should automatically complete for me, unless my computer is blowing up. Okay, .count. And that's going to return me the integer count of this guy, which in this case is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be 5. And also over here, I'm going to be returning a generic tableView cell. So this part is where we actually run into that problem with the reuse identifier that we encountered earlier. And if we go back to our storyboard, and we go ahead and click on our tableView cell, there's our view, there's our table view, that's our tableView cell. We go over here and in this inspector here, attributes inspector, we see that it has a identifier, reuse identifier. Here you give it a name. I'm going to call it myAnimalCell. Press enter. You notice that this guy changed to the name that I gave it. That's how you know it works. So that's the name I'm going to call it. I'm going to copy this, go over to my view controller, and I'm gonna make sure that this is the guy that I dequeue for my reusable cell. So first thing I'm going to do, let's create a constant. I'm going to name it cell, and it's going to be equal to the table, tableView.dequeueReusableCell with identifier. The identifier is simply, I'm pasting what I just copied, myAnimalCell. There we go. And we're going to have to force unwrap this, otherwise it's going to give me a warning there. But here I just created that cell, and instead of returning an empty instance of a tableView cell, I am just going to return that cell that I made. And this cell is of this type, UI tableView cell. What is this error? Unterminated string literal. I don't get it. What's wrong with you? I think it's because my computer is just reacting slowly. It's thinking that I didn't close this, but in fact I did, but it just thought that I didn't for some reason. Okay, so, okay, we're almost there. It looks like, in about 15 minutes or so, it's going to load up and we're going to see the stuff that we ran, like 15 minutes ago, or 30 minutes ago for that matter. Okay, so we went and wired up our two protocol methods, returned the number of items in the fixture, and we returned a generic cell. Somebody's knocking on my door here. I'm just gonna ignore him. I think he went away. Okay. So this is done. We're going on to step 10, run your app. Okay, no, I'm not gonna do that. You should see the data in the fixture in the table. You should see the data in the fixture in the table. Okay, so what this is saying that, if we run our app, we should be looking at this data that we, hard-coded, and it should be displaying in our table view cell. But if we run our app right now, it's not going to do that. The reason why it's not going to do that is because we didn't really assign any of these values to our text label in the given one. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to say the cell.text label .text, that is going to be equal to self.animals. I want to autocomplete. There you go. Animals, and this guy is going to be an index, and the index I want to actually display is the index path dot row. This will take the index path dot row is basically an integer number, and it's going to go from 0 to whatever the maximum return value I specify. And it's going from 0 to that, and it's going to represent one index in this animals. And go ahead and take a look at that data, and it's going to pull one of the elements down, and it's going to set it to that text. And because I just made it all strings, it'll work because this .text has to be of type string. But since it is, we're not going to get any errors. And now if we run it, now it's going to really show us these strings inside of each of our cells. So it looks like this guy is still not ready yet. At least my computer is not crashed yet. So I'm just going to say, trust me on this. And if we run it, it'll work. Okay, so the next step we're going to do. Create a UI table view cell subclass and connect it to the cell in interface builder. Okay, so what it's saying is, it wants us to create a custom UI table view cell. And it wants us to, instead of using this generic UI table view, we're going to create our own cell class. That is a subclass of this UI table view cell. So in order to do that, you click on this folder here, table view demo, right click on it, new file, and it's going to pop up, and we're going to make it Cocoa Touch class. I'm going to select next. We're going to say this class is, let's call it the CustomAnimalCell. And we capitalize the first letter because look at, these class names should all be, these files should be capitalized, following that convention. And it's a subclass of the UI table view cell. Make sure you select that one. Language is Swift, cool, next. Okay, create. I actually did something really weird here. Not weird, but it's kind of dumb. CustomAnimalCell table view cell. Okay, we can change the name even though, we just made this. We can just get rid of this stuff that they added for me in the back. And also, we can rename this guy and get rid of that. I don't know why they do that to you, but it's kind of annoying. CustomAnimalCell, cool. And it's a subclass of the UI table view cell, which I mentioned earlier. And this guy is going to be our CustomAnimalCell. So now that we have created this custom animal cell, make sure you hit Command S to save it. And if you do save it correctly and you go back to the main storyboard, you should be able to see it in the drop-down. When you select the table view or the table view cell, in this little like American flag thingy, you click on that and it says custom class for this class. Right now is a UI table view cell. I wanted to change it to the custom animal cell, and it should be in that drop-down once you have created that in your code. So enter. Oh my god, did the Xcode crash? Oh no, this guy's done. Okay. So cool. Now that my animal cell is this custom animal cell class, I will be able to drag things inside of all the elements that are in here. I can drag it onto this custom animal cell code and hook it up that way. So let's see what we're trying to do. Create a UI subclass and connect it to the cell in the interface builder. Okay, so we have already done that. So this, we're going to check this off the list. Number 12, wire up the controls to the UI table view cell subclass. Okay, so what this means is we're going to make some controls. And what that is really just like switches, some buttons. Like in the morning, Chris did an image, a button, you know, a switch. We can go ahead and do that and hook it up. But it looks like we're not going to really use it in. Oh, we can make a button. Let's make a button. Okay. So we're going to drag a button onto this content view. Let go. And we see the button is in here. Oh no. I think if you have a fast computer, it just it'll double your efficiency as an iOS developer. If you have a computer that is, you don't have to wait a few seconds for it to respond to everything, like you see I'm doing right now. So I'm kind of like dragging the button to the edges so I can give it some auto layout constraints, but it's really sluggish. Okay, so I'm gonna put you on the edge here. I'm sorry this demo is taking way longer than I thought, but please bear with me, we're almost done. Giving it some constraints, giving it a width. I'm going to add these constraints so that this guy will not like yell any errors at me. Now that this button is there, I can make you know, give it a white color so we can see the name of it. There we go. There's our button. Oh, there we go. So we're going to stop that. We waited about like, I think it was like 15 minutes just to see this thing come up. Hopefully the next time I run it, it won't take that long. All right, please respond. Okay, cool. So we got button in here. We'll go ahead and wire this up to our custom animal class. So we click on the custom animal class. I'm going to get rid of all of these guys just so we have some room to work. I'm going to open up the assistant editor here. We're going to select our main storyboard. All right, let's go. Over here, we're going to find the button that we're looking for. There we are. And we're going to hold down Control, and we're going to drag it into our custom animal cell. Notice how when I drag it, it allows me to actually put it in here. If the classes did not match, it wouldn't even allow you to do that. So since it allows us to do that, we know it's working. So I'm just going to call it button. And this is going to be, let's say, an action. Okay, let's going to be an action UI button and touch up inside, connect. Not finding for the class name CustomAnimalCell. What the hell? That's a weird error. Well, you know what? Let's see if we can make an outlet. I think it was because the name, my button, UI button, connect. Oh, cannot find information for the class name CustomAnimalCell. That just makes no sense. Yeah. What's wrong with you? For the class name CustomAnimalCell. What does that even mean? I think it's because this thing is not done processing yet, and it's not finding that connection properly. I'm pretty sure that is my suspicion for this, why this error is happening. So if it's not done indexing, it's not going to be able to make these connections properly. And it's telling me that it cannot find information for the CustomAnimalCell, which kind of tells me that it hasn't loaded this information yet. And that's why I'm getting that error. It's the first time I've ever seen that, but I think that's what it is. Well, hopefully at home when you guys do this, it'll work. If it does work, you know, make an outlet or an action for these elements here, and that's where you would be able to, you know, give it a name and reference them for later use. So let's go ahead and look at okay, wire up the controls. Sure, that's done. Add a model property to your tableView subclass with a custom getter and a setter. Okay, so we're going to close our assistant editor here. Man, my computer is just really, really crappy today. I don't know really what's wrong with it. Cool. So in the morning, Chris showed us how to do this MVC method in which we have a getter and a setter for a private variable called our model. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a private variable underscore model, and it's going to be a string, and I'm going to set it equal to an empty string to initialize. And then we're going to create a public method, and it's going to be internal set. And this is the syntax that Chris looked up in the morning. It's kind of like you had to either have it documented down somewhere or look it up. But we're going to name this thing model. It's going to have a class of string. And inside of this method here, we're going to have a getter, and that's just get. And when we get, we return self._model. And under that, we're going to have a set. This is the setter. And what we're going to do in the setter is we're going to say self._model equals to new value. And in the morning, Chris mentioned that this new value, even though you don't see this argument being passed in, by default, that is the name of whatever is on the right of the equal sign when you do invoke this setter here. So after that, we're going to type self.textLabel. It didn't autocomplete for me, but I think it's there. Text, yeah, there we go. It's like about a minute too slow, but text equals to self._model. Let's get this code nice and clean. And this is our getter, that's our setter, and it's used for this model variable here. And this is the way that CB will recommend that you do it, and I agree with them. Okay. Even though it's a little bit extra work, it does make a lot more sense in the end. Okay, now that we have actually set this guy, inside of our view controller, there is no need for this line anymore. Because what we just did there is we said, hey, you know, the actual cell is the one who's supposed to handle its own, text labels. It's not like me, the view controller, that's supposed to do it. The cell, you're responsible for that. So we're not reaching into your wallet and doing it for you. We're asking you, which you are the cell, and we're saying, hey, what is your model and what is your data that you're going to show? And that's basically what we're doing. So in this case, we can comment this out, and we are going to set the data for cell.model when we reach this point and we want to display this custom cell. So we would say cell.m, and it's going to autocomplete for me, hopefully. Okay, it's not, but I do have a cell.model. I just created it. My computer is really slow. Self.animals, and it's going to be the same indexPath.row over here. Just copy that down here. So instead of setting cell text label.text, and by doing this, you're kind of reaching into this guy's wallet and just like taking his driver's license, we're going to actually give your model some data, because in MVC, the model is the one who handles the data. We're giving the model of this cell this data that it needs to do. And inside of the cell class, you're going to set this, and therefore display that data. Okay, it's showing me some errors here, but I'm pretty sure it's because my computer is slow. There we go. See, the error's gone. Cool. So we are done with this step. Add a model property, and we got a custom getter and a setter. Boom, Bob's your uncle. Number 14, set control values based on model. That is what we did when we did this. Right now, really the only control value we need to set is just this text label.text. So basically what this line means, set control values based on model, is saying that, hey, once we set our model and we actually get this new value here and we save it in this model, what are you now going to do with this data? And what we're doing here is we're just setting the text label.text equal to self.model. And that is setting the control once we have set this model. So that step we have done. And we're almost there, guys. Thank you for bearing with me, this crappy machine. Number 15, set model in cell for index path from fixture data. Okay. Yeah, so we did that. We did that part. So over here, what that is, set model in cell for index path from fixture data. In our view controller, we have this line is what does that for you. We set the cell's model to be this data that's coming from our fixture. And everything should be looking fine. This indexing, I swear, it's been going on for like 15 minutes. This is done. Good job. Last step, run your app. I don't know if I want to do that. Maybe I should just quit while I'm ahead before the computer actually crashes. But if you're looking at home, then that's pretty much it. You have just created a simple table view using this MVC kind of methodology. And there's really like just not that many lines of code at all. It's just kind of like, a few lines of code. We made our custom cell, which is really nice. And if we run this, it should display the animal names. And if we hook this button up, we can have some logic in our animal cell code to say, hey, the button is clicked, change the, print something, print self.model, that's the animal, or something like that. And you can do that within this custom animal cell. So I think I'm going to end here. Not going to run this again for the fear of crashing my computer again. Hope this helps. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys on Monday.